Sean.
Marco.
We are here to deliver a message from the RSA conference team.
It's an important message from our friends. RSA Conference 2025, just around the corner, where insights drive action, solutions emerge, and community connections spark innovation. You'll be there. I'll be there. We invite everybody else to be there April 28th through May 1st. You can secure your spot at rsaconference.com/ITSPMAG25. That's ITSPMAG25. See you all there.
I'll be there. See you there.
Marco.
Sean.
Story time, my friend.
I love it. I love brand stories.
I know. We get to talk to some cool people about
and me.
And Rob.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
There you go. He made it easy. We don't need to do formal introductions or anything like that. Here you go. Rob Allen, ThreatLocker. How are you?
I'm very well. All the better for being here, Marco.
Very good. Okay, Sean, take it back where you were. What were you saying?
Well, what I was trying to say is there's a lot of stuff being built and delivered. Some of it's innovative, and I think I've seen a lot of releases coming from the ThreatLocker team over the last few weeks. And I'm thrilled to have you on, Rob. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here, Sean.
You look after a lot of that tech and the innovation and delivery of all the stuff. And we're going to touch on some of the releases and kind of the bigger, badder vision of ThreatLocker. But before we do that, maybe describe your role a little bit and your entry into the ThreatLocker world, looking after what you do.
Sure. Well, my role as Chief Product Officer, I've been with the company for a little bit over 4 years now. I joined, it's a very long story, but I've known Danny, our CEO, for many years, probably 15 years, through previous enterprises he was involved with. Kept in touch with him down through the years. Always very impressed. Knew he was an incredibly clever guy. But about 3 or 4 years ago, he approached me and said, well, look, have this thing. It's doing really well. Think you'd be really interested. Would you come on board and basically start up our European operations? So did that. Was there for two and a half years, give or take. And then the opportunity arose to come over here, basically be in the center of things and help drive the product forward. So it was an opportunity I very much jumped at, and I am now, as you can see, here. So based in the office here in Orlando, and as I said, very much at the center of things, and it's a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, not a bad place. You get a lot of sun. Right?
Exactly.
There you go. That's
well, yes. And again, as the more observant of the viewers / listeners will have noticed, is from my thick Minnesota accent, is I'm not from around these parts, and not from anywhere near as sunny or as pleasant as Orlando. But it's a fantastic place to be. It's thriving. It's really chilled out place, and as I said, just being at the center of things. I mean, we've grown since I've joined from 30 something staff to over 550 today.
Yep.
And just being able to witness that, see that, be a part of that has been phenomenal.
Well, let's start from there. I mean, 3 years with the company, the vision and innovation. I know, like Sean said, you're putting out solutions and integrating things, and where do they come from? Right.
I will confess that Danny is very much the brains of the operation. I might be the pretty face, but Danny is very much the brains of the operation. So a lot of the ideas basically will come from him. Again, customers are always a fantastic source of ideas on things that we could do differently, things that we could do better, things that would improve the product and their lives. Ultimately, is another fantastic source. I mean, Danny started off with a pretty clear objective, which was to basically change the paradigm of endpoint security from default permit to default deny. And it comes back around to this idea of zero trust, but it's a very unique outlook. It basically takes 20 years of cybersecurity And as I said, that sort of trust but verify approach that so many other people are doing completely turns that around. It's a total 180 from that to no, don't trust but verify. Block first, or block everything that isn't explicitly allowed. So it's a very unique approach, but it extremely effective. And as I said, something that does help our customers sleep better at night.
And I want to stick. There's so many places to go with this. So we'll get to many of it, but I want to stick with kind of the innovation point and the vision point. We've had a chance to chat with Kieran Human and Adam Fuller, Special Projects, which I've been involved in a lot of corporate organizations, and there might be some skunkworks stuff going on, but this is formally dedicated team looking at research and looking at new and cool ways to rethink how we do this, right?
Yeah, and those guys are awesome. Those guys are absolutely awesome. I've got a huge amount of time and respect for them. I mean, basically anything that we don't have the time or the wherewithal to figure out, we basically set them on the case, and invariably they will come back to us with a solution of some description. So yeah, no, really, really good guys, and very important part of what we do today.
So give us, spill the beans. What are some of the new products that you are very excited about?
Well, the newest additions to our portfolio of products basically were ones that we announced recently at Zero Trust World. So I'm not sure if you've ever met Danny. One thing that Danny absolutely loves is to stand up on stage and basically announce cool new things for people. Zero Trust World in itself is, as much like the company, has grown exponentially over the last number of years. Again, I was at, I think, the second one nearly 4 years ago, and a couple of hundred people there. This year there was 1,600 non-staff at the event. So again, being able to stand up on stage and say, hey, we got this cool new stuff, is something that Danny is very much a fan of. But the new things that we've added, and to some extent they're kind of logical extensions of what we were doing already. So we've added web control, so effectively the ability to control people's access to malicious websites or inappropriate websites and so on and so forth. Again, pretty logical extension from everything else we do, because we've always had effectively a firewall built into what we do. So we're just going to use that firewall to control access to websites. We also released patch management. And patch management is really, really interesting because of the visibility that we have running within people's environments. We can see everything that runs, everything that executes, everything that doesn't execute, stuff that's just sitting around on people's machines, things that aren't picked up by a typical patch management solution that's only really concerned with what's in the registry. Because we can see all that stuff, we can basically patch all of that stuff as well. So they're the two main new additions to the product over the last few months.
I've seen a few more as well, and I hopefully you don't mind touching on them. So there's the user store, which I think is an important
store is really cool. So again, this is something that pretty much came from suggestions to us by larger enterprise customers. They said, look, well, it's all very well and good you block all the stuff that we don't want to run, but to some extent that can introduce frustration at a user level. So I can't run the thing I need to run. I don't know what PDF viewer I'm allowed to run on my machine. So the idea of the store allows organizations to publish basically a list of all of the software that's allowed, and show people, if I try and run Qt PDF and it's not on our approved list of PDF viewers, well, hey, here are the approved list of PDF viewers. So they don't have to go running 10 different things to find the thing that they're allowed to run. They're literally going to be shown front and center. These are the approved PDF viewers within our organization. Take your pick, install it, off you go. So yeah, the store is pretty cool as well. And again, that's a really good example of something that larger enterprise customers basically said to us, look, it'd be great if you could do that. And it was great that we could do that for them.
Well, if there is one thing I know with the conversations we already had, is that the really Danny and the whole team, you guys listen to the customer. And I heard this from the customer itself. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. One really cool thing, and this is sounding like a Danny fan show, but one really cool thing is that Danny even now attends a huge amount of industry events. Now, he does it for the opportunity, largely for the opportunity to speak to people and to listen to people as well. So a lot of the feedback that we get comes directly from our CEO standing, talking to customers, listening to them. What are your frustrations? What are your pain points? What could we do better? What do you like about the product? What you don't like, etc. But having a CEO, and I think he attended something in the region about 60 or 70 of those events last year alone. I do probably not quite that many, but not far off it. So maybe 30 or 40 events. And again, every event for us is, yes, an opportunity to spread the message of what we do and why it's important, but also, again, to speak to existing customers and get feedback and see what we can do to make their lives better.
Yeah, it's quite the experience meeting and chatting with Danny and seeing his involvement in so many things.
Yeah.
And I want to wrap up with two more products I feel are connected. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but first is the detect dashboard and the insights piece, which in my opinion effectively gives teams the ability to not just set policy, but to ensure that they're functioning properly in line with the business and take action if there's some anomaly or an exception there. So
well,
can you describe that?
To start with insights, really, heretofore, all of our customers' data were completely siloed. So your organization's data and my organization's data and everybody else's organization's data, they're effectively in separate databases. Now, if we wanted to see trends across all of our customers, we could do it, but it was really, really painful. I mean, you're searching in hundreds, if not thousands, thousands, if not tens of thousands of individual databases to try and find information or trends and that kind of stuff. So what we did with Insights is we've effectively taken selected information and centralized it. So rather than logging it to 10,000 individual databases, we're going to log it to one central database where we can then analyze that information, analyze that data. And we're using it, again, for the greater good. It's so, information like, well, I've got this thing that's trying to run on my machine. I'm not too sure about it. What other organizations or how many other organizations across ThreatLocker's entire customer base does that thing run on? Is it usually permitted? Is it usually denied? When was it first seen? When was it first seen in the wild? That kind of impact. How does it behave is another really, really good example. So like, say we're talking Chrome today. So how does Chrome usually behave? What does Chrome usually need to interact with? Where does it need to go on the internet? I mean, for a browser, probably everywhere. But for other applications like, say, Zoom or Teams and so on, we can now take the information that we're collating through Insights and create really specific, really tailored ring fencing policies. Say, well, look, this is how this application typically needs to behave in other organizations. I'm going to set those restrictions around the application in my organization based on how it needs to run elsewhere. So it's a really cool way of kind of collating big data and using that big data. Because, I mean, we log a phenomenal amount of information. I mean, somewhere between 3 and 4 billion rows of data per hour across all of those tens of thousands of organizations. But again, we were never really able to use that information for, as I said, the greater good. So yeah, that's pretty much where Insights came in. Again, I hate to say it, but a Danny idea, but a very, very good one.
I need the Danny hat.
Right?
Go.
No comment.
Tell me.
Sorry, you did ask about something else, Sean. I only answered half
your
question.
The detect dashboard.
Oh, the detect dashboard. Yeah. So basically, one of the things, and any customers who are watching will probably be aware. One of the things that our portal again is very data rich. There's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of information in there. One of the things that we're probably lacking a little bit is shiny charts, basically. And one of the things that we've added with the detect dashboard is shiny charts. So you can see number of alerts, number of events, what proportion of them are certain things, all that stuff that looks really nice in a shiny dashboard. We've added a few other improvements to our detect product, which is something that we announced. I can't remember if it was last year or Trustworld or the one before. Stuff around linking different detection policies together. So if this happens and this happens, then tell me about it, rather than just if this happens. we've added recommendations as well. So one of the problems, and we kind of internally jokingly call our MDR team the configuration police, because very often what they're doing is they're ringing somebody to say, hey, did you know that RDP is exposed to the internet on this server? Or did you know somebody's doing that on this machine? Whatever the case may be. And one of the things we can now do is they can basically make a recommendation. So they can say, well, look, this is what we recommend you do to solve this problem. And then when the customer looks at the recommendation, they can just say, yes, apply that recommendation to my environment, so therefore the problem goes away. So we're not telling people what to do and then basically, waiting and wondering if they might ever do it. We're telling people what they should do and giving them actionable, easily applied solutions to the problems.
One thing I want to start talking is the customer experience, but still referring to this innovation. When you roll out a new tool, it's not just a standalone tool. Like, I know that they actually integrate one with another, which is a very important
Absolutely.
thing. So tell me a little bit about how you keep it all working together and still applying that zero trust concept, which many people think like, oh God, I'm stuck, right?
No, the user experience is obviously something that's really important to us. And again, that's where a lot of that feedback comes in, so valuable. But we have users of the platform and we have users within the organizations who use the platform. So there's two different levels of users, I suppose, that we have to consider in what we do. Now, the usability of the platform is obviously front and center because we want our customers to be able to do what they want to do easily and efficiently, but we also have to consider the end user experience, and that's a really important consideration. So example being the web control. A big part of the web control product that we just announced is a lot of other web control solutions or DNS solutions. You get blocked from accessing a website. There's not very much you can do about it. You just get a vanilla landing page, probably an SSL error saying, you can't access this page. And you're kind of going, well, what can I do about it? One of the important things that we built into our web control is if a page gets blocked, we have a Chrome extension or an Edge extension that basically sits there and it redirects you to a page where you can say, well, look, this was blocked because of this policy. Do you want to request access? So the user can action. They can say, right, I do want access to this. So like I want to access my betting site, even though gambling is blocked across the organization. So I can literally just submit a request saying I likes to gambles, and then the administrator can approve that, and within 60 seconds I'm able to access my site. So that end user experience is also extremely important to us as well. So we have to consider both sets of users really.
And of course, the flip side to that, which you touched on as well, is the experience for IT and security connected to IT in that use case there. They're not struggling with a bunch of tickets, right? This is something that comes
Absolutely.
through and happens.
Yeah, fundamentally. And again, one of the big things about it is that I worked in IT for the best part of 20 years. I used to be the one who was fixing people's computers. And one of the things, and one of the big things that ThreatLocker as a platform and the approach that we take offers is to remove the problem of basically users doing stupid things that get themselves in trouble. So another way of putting it might be to call it shadow IT. It's probably a better way of describing stupid users, but you get the idea. So shadow IT. So again, many years ago, I'd sell somebody a computer, I'd give somebody a computer and everything is fine. It's super duper and it's fantastic and they love it. And then 6 months later, I get a phone call to say, hey, my computer's running really slowly. And then I'll log in, I'll have a look and I'll find that they've got 15 different Chrome extensions and 4 different toolbars and 3 different antiviruses running it. And they're wondering why it's running slowly. So if you take away the user's ability to do all of those things, the reality and the likelihood is that they're not going to get themselves in those situations. They're not going to ring you in 6 months' time and say, hey, my computer's running really slowly. Can you sort it out, IT department? Even though it's not something the IT department did.
And I want to, because this assumes everything is in place. And there's 2 parts to achieve that state. First is, and I'll start with this first, actually, the mindset of what are we trying to accomplish, which I think is different with what you offer. So you have to think differently about your program. The next is getting stuff deployed and maintaining it. Can
Mm-hmm.
you talk through product and engagement with you and your team, with your customers, to kind of get through those first two steps so they can achieve what you just described, which is the streamlined flow?
Absolutely. As I said, in terms of the mindset, it's literally just going from permit by default to deny by default. Now, the thing about it is this need not get in somebody's way. And it sort of leads into your second question, which is there is a deny by default aspect to it, which is the what is going to keep you safe, but there's also a permit by exception part to it. So it's not just deny by default, it's deny by default, permit by exception. And the permit by exception is the bit that allows organizations to continue functioning. It's what allows your users to do their jobs, because you can't just block everything, because then computers aren't going to be very much use. You have to block everything and permit with exception. So as I said, the exception being the software you use every day, your browsers, your Teams, your Zoom, your video conferencing tools, your Office, that kind of stuff. But the thing about it is, in the vast majority of environments, most users fundamentally do the same things in the same way with the same software every single day. They don't install random applications all the time. They're not installing, dozens of new Chrome extensions over the course of a year. They pretty much do their job with the software they have. And basically, we're just putting guardrails around that. What we're doing is we're saying, hey, look, you operate within these guardrails and you're not even going to know we're here. Now, if you go trying to run the coupon clipper from China, or if you try and run, anything malicious, obviously, but anything, remote access tool. So really nice man from Microsoft is on the phone saying, hey, there's a problem with your Windows. I want to get in and fix it. Can we install this remote access tool so I can help you out? Now, the sad reality is a lot of people will say yes, install said remote access tool, which again is not a bad tool necessarily. I mean, your AnyDesks, which is the remote access tool of choice of ransomware gangs, or TeamViewer, or any one of 10 different remote access tools, are not in themselves malicious. Can they be used maliciously? Absolutely. So again, we're just setting guardrails, boundaries around what people can do. And as long as I said, they continue within those boundaries, they're not even going to know we're there. The second part to lead on is making it easy for the administrators to implement this, because that is really, really important. Like the deny by default scares people, quite frankly, because they may have had experience in the past with other zero trust tools. They might have tried to implement allow listing many years ago and said, oh, this is way too much work. A couple of things that we do to make that easier, to make it less of a heavy lift, is we basically learn everything that's in the environment. So we'll create policies automatically to allow people to continue running the software they're already running once ThreatLocker is enabled. So I don't need to say, well, Rob needs Visual Studio and he needs Teams and he needs Zoom and he needs all those things. We're going to see all those things running and we're going to create policies automatically. So that takes away a lot of the hard work out of the process. The other thing is we have what we call our applications team that manage what we call built-in applications. And built-in applications are kind of the secret sauce as to why ThreatLocker is as successful and efficient and effective as it is, and easy to manage, which is that we've got a team who are basically downloading software, installing software, cataloging software 24/7, 365. So I'm talking to you on Chrome. Those guys have probably downloaded Chrome 20 times already today, basically to check and see if there's a new update. If there's a new update, they'll catalog it, they'll add it to our built-in applications, and it'll get pushed down to any of our customers who are using those built-in applications automatically. So basically, customers don't need to worry about updates causing problem, because updates causing problems is one of the big previous frustrations with allow listing, and it's one of the reasons that people could never even countenance it, because what do I have to do, or what happens when Acrobat gets blocked on 500 or 1,000 machines in my organization? In a lot of cases, you'd have to react, you'd have to do stuff, you'd have to change stuff, you'd have to catalog stuff. We're doing all of that for you, basically, and we've got 8,500 of those built-in applications today, and that number grows weekly.
Wow.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one more quick thing. You touched on it briefly, but there's what's running, policies around that. You help them keep up to date with that stuff. Then there's the exception. You touched on it briefly, but talk about the role of exception handling here, because I think that can be another big area where teams kind of get frustrated, right?
Absolutely. And again, it comes back to the idea of making it as smooth and as seamless as possible. I mean, basically, if I try and run something and it gets blocked on my machine, I can submit a request. gets evaluated, comes straight through to whether it be a ticketing system, a ServiceNow, whatever the case may be. But basically, somebody can then make an educated decision about whether or not to allow that thing. So it gets blocked, it gets evaluated by the administrator, it gets approved, and within 60 seconds it's allowed to run on a machine. So it's a really smooth, really clean, really easy approval process. But again, the important part about that is somebody is making an educated decision on your behalf. Should this thing be allowed to run on your machine? It's not an AI trying to work stuff out. It's not, fundamentally, it's not something making a decision. It's someone making a decision on your behalf. Should this be allowed to run or not? But again, it's a really smooth, easy, quick process.
So what people think about zero trust, I think we said it several times here, it's kind of scary, right? Like, you want to deny everything. How am I going to run my business and so forth? So I'm putting myself in the mind of people listening to this right now. They're not ThreatLocker user. How complicated or easy is to get started with you guys if you never use it?
Absolutely not at all. I'd always recommend to somebody that, look, you should try this out. Okay, the worst you will get out of trying it out. So you deploy ThreatLocker, it's not secured straight away. It's not going to block anything. It's not going to get in your way. It's not going to interfere with anything. All it's going to do fundamentally is going to log data. It's going to create those policies I mentioned. But the interesting thing is when somebody deploys this, or when most customers deploy this, invariably there will be a surprise there. There will be something they don't even know about within their, whether it be machine or set of machines environment. Could be a remote access tool, could be a keylogger, whatever it happens to be, there will be some surprises there. They'll go, oh my God, I didn't even remember installing that on my machine. I mean, I've spoken to companies who've had like 5, 6, 7 different remote access tools running within their environment. They've AnyDesk, they've logged me in, they've like one organization had TeamViewer running on 20% of computers in their environment. Now, that organization did not use TeamViewer. There was no good reason for TeamViewer to be installed on 20% of their machines. But look, we all know how it happens, which is at some point in the far distant past, some third party said, hey, I need TeamViewer to get into your machine to fix a problem. Would you mind installing it? And the user goes, okay, I'll install that. And they get in, they fix the problem. And then TeamViewer sits on that machine forever as a potential way into that network. So as I said, I can pretty much guarantee anyone who tries this out is the worst you are going to get out of it is complete visibility over what's in your environment. But then you can take that complete visibility and turn it into control, because that fundamentally is what we are about. It is about control. It's about, okay, now I know what's here. I know how big the problem is. Let me start fixing it. So let me start blocking all of those remote access tools except the one that we happen to use. Or let me start putting controls around, and ring fencing is something we haven't even touched on, but let me start putting some controls around things like PowerShell to make sure it's not weaponized and used against me. So it's a really simple process. Basically, all we ask from customers is an hour a week. Give us an hour a week. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000 machines, 10,000, 100,000 machines. Give us an hour a week. We'll show you how to operate the system, to work around the platform. We'll show you what you should be doing, recommendations. This thing is doing this right now. Is that okay? No. Okay. Well, let's solve that problem. But an hour a week is typically all that's needed to get this from a seeing everything to control everything state.
And are you able to share some examples? You don't have to name customers if they're anonymous, but I'm looking for some use cases or scenarios that are pretty impactful. So I'm assuming the obvious ones are the team's less stressed out and not as much pressure on them. We manage business workflows more easily now. But what I'm looking at is lower cost of software, right? If they have a bunch of stuff, if they're paying for things they're not using, or things are exposing, or they're looking to get acquired and they want to reduce the cost of stuff. I'm just wondering, are there any cases where you see the outcome of having a ThreatLocker in the environment help a customer achieve something that he didn't even think of beyond just security?
I'm going to give you a serious answer to this question. I'm going to give you a slightly humorous answer to this question. Serious answer to the question is the most common feedback I get from customers when I meet them at events and so on is that you help us sleep at night. Knowing ThreatLocker is running on my machines or my customers' machines, as the case may be, helps me sleep better at night. Genuinely, there is nothing better that somebody could say to me. I mean, it means we're making an actual difference in their lives, not just in their working lives, in their lives. Their mental health is better because they know that they've got effectively ThreatLocker watching their back or keeping them safe. So that's the absolutely serious answer to your question. The slightly less serious answer to your question, it's still kind of serious as well, but I mean, one of our biggest, like, look, in a lot of cases, especially big enterprises, don't really want to advertise what they use or what their security stack entails. One of the bigger ones who do is JetBlue. So JetBlue are a fantastic customer of ours, and have been for many years. You might have remembered a couple of months ago, and without naming names, there was a slight incident with a piece of security software that caused blue screen issues. As far as I'm aware, and again, don't quote me on this, and I understand I'm on camera, obviously, so I can probably be quoted on this, but there was basically 2 airlines that were still flying during that incident. One, I think, was Southwest, and I again, I don't know why, but I believe it was something to do with running on old operating systems. Again, don't quote me on that. The other was JetBlue, because they use ThreatLocker. So that's a really good example. Now, on the subject of that incident, and this is actually a really good example of ways that our solution can be used in ways that we never could have anticipated when we created it. We also had a number of mutual customers with the solution that had the blue screen issues. And what we found was we were able to use parts of ThreatLocker to alleviate the issues. So we have a solution, part of what ThreatLocker does is called storage control. So with storage control, you can be very specific about which programs have access to what data, or you can basically block all programs from accessing a particular piece of data on a machine. So we were able to create a storage control policy that blocked this software from accessing the problem sys file, which was the one that was causing the blue screens. So by using ThreatLocker, we were able to stop machines blue screening. Now, it was kind of a toss-up as to whether we got loaded first or they got loaded first, but if we got loaded first, we wouldn't let it access the sys file, therefore blue screen didn't happen, therefore problem pretty much went away. And we did have other customers as well who basically just used ThreatLocker to block access to that software completely. I know it's going to blue screen my machine, so just you, ThreatLocker, stop it from running. So there are a couple of examples of how we could never have envisaged our software being used for that purpose, but in that particular case, it was successfully.
Yeah. I want to touch on something else, which is the many partners that you guys have. I know part of the event that you organize actually to bring the partners together. I'm sure there's a lot of exchanges of information and opinion, and probably they have a role into implementing new solutions. So you want to tell me about that a little bit?
Well, as I said, Zero Trust World is by far and away the best way for us to get customers in one place, because fundamentally it means that we're not traveling all around the country to meet them; they're all coming here to meet us. So it's win-win from that perspective. But we also have, and as I said, feedback is really important. The other thing we have is we have advisory boards for different types of customers, basically. So we get a bunch of customers in a room together and basically brainstorm with them. So, again, and it's a great situation. It's a great place for people to share ideas. So they all say, well, look, this would be cool. And then they can discuss it amongst themselves, discuss it with us, and, basically come up with ideas like that. So the advisory boards are incredibly valuable to us as well in terms of product direction, what they want us to see, or what do they want to see us doing next.
And partners are part of that advisory board as well?
Okay, they are 100%. Yeah, it is all partners. It is all customers. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all customers.
Very good. Cool. So what about the future? What's next?
The future is bright.
Spill the beans, man. Spill the beans.
The future is bright. No, look, as I said, we're always working on improving. I mean, realistically, if you stand still in this industry, you're dead. The way I look at it is we're effectively building a market. Most of cybersecurity is headed in a particular direction, which is we're going to figure out all the bad stuff. we're saying you guys are never going to know all of the bad stuff. Okay. Nobody knows all the bad stuff. Put all of the other, detection tools together, and not every single one of them combined is going to know every single bad thing that's out there, because fundamentally there's too many bad things out there. So rather than play that game, rather than basically try and solve that problem, which is pretty much unsolvable, we're going down a different route. We're going down the route of deny by default. We're going down the route of block everything that isn't explicitly allowed. Now, again, it's taken us time to get here, but it is obviously something that resonates with organizations, because, I mean, look, the fact is organizations are not stupid. They can see that the ransomware problem is showing no signs of slowing down. You know what I mean? It's not a solved problem, because if it was a solved problem, there would be no need for a ThreatLocker. There'd be no need for any other security vendors or cybersecurity vendors. But again, the fact that we are seeing the successes that we are shows that people realize that it's not a solved problem, and that a different approach is needed, or at very least a combination of approaches. And I think that's really important, because we do see people with lots of tools in their stacks. We've got lots of different, we've got this AV, and we've got that EDR, and we've got that MDR, and we've got that other thing, and we've got all these things that are basically looking for bad things, and basically the same known bad things, realistically. So all we're saying is, well, look, we're not saying you don't need some detection, but why don't you take some detection and combine it with some control? So detection and control are basically, they're complementary fundamentally. And now we do offer both things, because we've got obviously ThreatLocker Protect, which is the protection stuff. We've got Detect, which is the detection stuff. So you can do it all within one platform if you want as well. But at a very minimum, combine those two approaches, it will give you a proper layered defense, not just layering similar things on top of each other, which realistically is not actually layered. I mean, it's pretty much the definition of defense in depth. It's not just doing the same thing again or over and over again, expecting different results. It's actually doing something different.
Yeah, and what I like about what I hear and what I see every time I interact with the ThreatLocker team is it's a different way of thinking about the problem, and it's directly connected to how the business operates. So it isn't just threat driven. It isn't just exposure driven. It's, we need the company to operate. This is how we operate. We need to do that safely, and we need to not push the team over the cliff as we try to achieve that.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And again, that all comes back to the user experience, to the end user experience, to making it as easy as possible to implement. I mean, it's all part of a bigger picture. I mean, we don't want, as I said, some people have experience of implementing similar solutions in the past. They're probably burned by those experiences. I mean, I've literally spoken to organizations that have spent, and this is not an exaggeration, years trying to implement other similar solutions, and they haven't even got to the point where they can turn it on. I mean, I spoke to a large chain in the UK who had spent 4 years trying to implement something similar. I spoke to a health insurance organization in the Middle East as well. 2 years, 10 people, 2 years working on a project, and had eventually given up in frustration. They said, look, this can't be done. This can't be managed. So we're just going to give up and not do it. It isn't that difficult with ThreatLocker. I can absolutely assure you it is not that difficult with ThreatLocker. We make it manageable. We make it attainable. We make it achievable. Even small organizations, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's one guy in the IT team or if it's 500 guys in the IT team. It is manageable. It is achievable.
Yep, absolutely. And I've heard that as well. And I think for folks listening and watching, now's your chance. If you haven't started that journey, connect with Rob and team. Clearly, they like to hear from their customers and their prospects to ensure that they're doing the right thing. So do connect with Rob and the team. Of course, we'll include resources to find the solutions that we talked about today. And you can read more about all the things that Rob and his team have been building and making available to everybody. And yeah, I mean, fantastic chatting with you, Rob. I appreciate you sharing the vision and the direction the team's going. And hopefully everybody starts their journey on Zero Trust.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Marco.
Thank you. And everybody else, just stay tuned. Subscribe to Brand Stories. There'll be many more. And everybody take care. Thanks again, Rob.
Thank you.
Sean.
Marco.
We are here to deliver a message from the RSA Conference team.
It's an important message from our friends. RSA Conference 2025, just around the corner, where insights drive action, solutions emerge, and community connections spark innovation. You'll be there. I'll be there. We invite everybody else to be there April 28th through May 1st. You can secure your spot at rsaconference.com/ITSPMAG25. That's ITSPMAG25. See you all there.
I'll be there. See you there.